All right, we're live. Hello, everyone out there in internet land. This is Karanda Adair with Carvel Digital, and this is part of our Content Bootcamp Experience live chat series. This series is supporting our launch of Content Bootcamp. We are actively enrolling folks for our fall cohort, and so I'm talking to people all across the spectrum of their experience with us, including people who haven't become clients yet. So thank you so much. I'm happy to have Shanique Allen here, and I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself and what you do, and then we'll just have a conversation. I'm really curious to ask you some things.
Awesome. So I'm Shanique Allen, and I'm a nutrition habits and mindset coach. And I have just help women just free themselves from diet culture and dieting in general and establish nourishing nutrition practices, nutrition and wellness practices.
Awesome. Okay. So the reason that I wanted to have you on is because I talk to a lot of people who tell me they want to join boot camp, and the investment is an issue or a barrier for them. And one of the reasons that I'm launching right now for the fall is because it's allowing us to offer a 6-month payment plan for people who join us before the end of June. So that's what I'm doing to try to help this. But one of the things I tell people is, go and listen to my free content, of which there is like 9 years worth of stuff, and implement it. And I saw you tag me in a comment in another group, and you were like, "Oh, it's so much easier to get attention and get clients because you've been implementing our stuff." And I was like, "Ooh, what, you actually like did what we said." So I was like, "I want to talk to you about this." So can you just walk me through, first of all, how long have you been following Carvel Digital? And then like what's the content that you've been consuming?
So I think I've been following you maybe since 2020. Because I think you won. Was that the year you won
Oh,
the
10K
10
in
day?
10 days.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had heard you on the podcast I'd heard you on that podcast, and
Mhm.
then I started to see you in some of the groups I was in, and I went to your podcast first, and then I literally just have been listening to your podcast ever since. And then I think I applied for content boot camp because I'm like, okay, maybe this is where I need to go, but I was not yet where I needed to be to invest. So I was like, all right, let me just keep listening to your podcast anyway. And you give so much through your podcast, like so many little gems. And even though I was listening to them, I don't think I started to actually pay attention and listen and like start to just do some simple things until maybe a solid year of listening to your podcast, but also being in groups with you as well. So the Karanda dragging, um, friendly dragging was part of that process for me. Like, okay, she's like, it sounds like avoid the shiny things and just go with something super simple. And that appeals to me because I'm that person who gets distracted by a lot of things. So I'm like, let me just start with the simple things. And then I bought Pot of Gold because he kept referring to it in your podcast. And I'm like, she keeps talking about pot of gold, and organizing content, which for me was something I found content to be a whole lot, and I wanted
Mhm.
a way to simplify it. And even though I bought pot of gold, believe it or not, I bought pot of gold. I did not use pot of gold for a solid maybe. I don't think I started using it until we're in June, April.
Okay. So for anyone who doesn't know, the pot of gold, it's probably our entry level thing, right? And what it is an Airtable template that you can use to organize all of your marketing content, really all of your business content, internal and external. So, Airtable is a relational database program. Think of it as like Excel, like on steroids. It's really beautiful. It's extremely powerful. So we created this template because we had a ton of content, and I wanted to be able to find it, put my hands on it, repurpose it, I didn't want to spend time, I like to answer questions with links because I have so many blog posts and podcasts and resources. And so when people ask me something and I know I have some content about it, I didn't want to have to search the whole internet to find it. So I can usually go and put my hands on something in under a minute. So we sell that template. You can get it at this link, carveldigital.com/POG. And so it's really common, actually, Shanique, don't feel bad. Like a lot of
No, I
people
don't.
buy the pot of gold and then don't use it. So you're in good company there. I will say also that, and tell me this is true for you, when people do start to use the pot of gold, then they get hooked on it. So what was your experience?
So here's the thing. So yes, I got pot and gold and did not use it, but then I kept complaining. I'm like, God, I have all this content, Jesus. And coaches will say repurpose, repurpose. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to go scroll through all of these things, but didn't kept forgetting that there's pot and gold. So I finally kind of got annoyed with myself this year. I'm tired of trying to come up with new things, and I know I've got a ton of things. So I said, let me go back to Patagonia. I watched all the videos, rewatch them, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna start. And I started with my Instagram post, and I then included my emails, and then my Facebook posts, and then my blog. And I realized, having just going through that process, I was like, shit, I've got a lot of content. Like, and I thought, I am like, so why am I recreating things? And I guess this is the message that coaches have, or the coaches I have had. I've always said, use your content that you already have. I was kind of just making it harder for myself. But once I started to put it in there, I was like, genius, like Corona, genius with this. I mean, it already being populated in a way that makes it easy to pull what you want because you've already set it up. And I just change out my categories or whatnot. It makes it very easy for me to organize things and go search for what I want. So for me, that was like, I guess that's when my light bulb went off. Like, I do not have to create content ever or at the foreseeable future if I don't want to, because I already have it. And this pot of gold is proof that I already have it. And as a result of that, my emails, I've done emails. I'm like, I'm just taking this and I'm repurposing it for now. Um, and I have a whole bunch of reels lined up because I'm taking content that I already had in written form that I'm now gonna, so conceptually, all the content I had was very overwhelming. But now it's not, because I have my eyes on exactly what it is and what I want to find when I want to find it.
Yeah, it's life changing. And I think your experience points to what we talk about a lot, with our in-source clients and our marketing intensives, which is that if you can't actually see it, it is very hard to make decisions, to have a strategy. Like, our marketing is just, it's like out here up in the air, dispersed across everywhere. And if you can't, physically see something that represents your content or your marketing or your customer journey or whatever, it's really hard to get strategic. So I love that story. So what else was okay? So you got the pot of gold. Was there anything else that you um, implemented from either the podcast or the lessons?
Well, from the podcast, again, these are, I guess I have to go through things for it to finally, I have to go through things multiple times for
Mm-hmm.
me to finally get something. And one of them was my email. I hated email. And I remember when I had my first online coach, and she was like, well, you got to get into emails. And it just was like, I don't want to be annoying people and all of these things that come with, creating emails. But I decided that I was going to just give it a go. And then since listening to your podcast, I was like, okay, email, I like to write my thoughts. I can put my thoughts out there and not be limited by 100 and 240 characters or whatever the case is. So let me start. And through listening to your podcast, you gave I think you had one of the podcasts that talk about where to start. And one of them was your email sequence and what you needed in your email sequence, just a simple welcome sequence. I was like, all right, let me just do that. And In addition to that, other podcast episodes you've had about things to implement outside of the emails, that email welcome sequence, but your onboarding, keeping up with people. I mean, those are more advanced things, but just taking those little nuggets kind of helped me streamline a way to communicate with my audience outside of social media, outside of Instagram. And it made it simpler for me because, again, conceptually, there's this big thing. Okay, you need to have an email list, you need to have a social media strategy. And for me, it was just too much. So I ended up not doing anything. And
Mm-hmm.
the email was one of them I wanted to get better at. So through listening to your podcast and the recommendations you made, I've gotten way better at email. I actually prefer my email. Um, Honestly, I prefer communicating with my email. And my email rates have gone up significantly, not just from me being consistent. I've been doing more emails per week. Before it was once a week. Now I'm up to 2 to 3. It's not always 3, but it's more than one email a week, and I'm getting pretty good open rates there. So for me, just having implemented simple things
Mm-hmm.
in email has been pretty good for me. So much so that I really enjoy writing emails.
Okay, I want to unpack that a little bit because tell me, you said you hated email and now you prefer it. So what was it? What were the things that you were thinking that made you hate email before?
The number one thing was, I mean, people are gonna unsubscribe or not be interested in what I had to say, especially if I sent multiple emails. And then selling through my email was also the other thing that, but then I have the same issue on social media with just selling
Uh-huh.
it's just not just email. But I
Mhm.
found that email for me was a little more personal because being invited to somebody's inbox is a personal thing, and
Mhm.
when people give me their email, I look at it more as people inviting me into their space. So I guess my mindset around email has shifted just from just listening to podcasts like yours, but also the email marketing show
Mhm.
and joyful marketing and some other hosts. But my whole mindset around email has shifted as well. So email for me has been, it's more about building relationship building
Right.
situation, and for me, I enjoy that much more than dancing on social media.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think the key word there is relationship building because that's all good marketing, that's all it really is relationship building. And so once you come around to that mindset, then the channel doesn't really matter, right? And so that's what I tell people a lot about email is just another content channel. And if somebody, like you said, invites you into their inbox, like my inbox, I was just sighing in my inbox, like, minutes before this call, because it's full of people who are in there uninvited, like trying to get me to do something or
Mm,
give them something or promote them or whatever. But when someone actually does invite you in, like that is, um, it's precious and we should honor it by accepting the invitation, right? We don't want to be give them like crickets.
mhm,
They sign
mhm,
up to our list and nothing happens. So that's why the welcome sequence is important, and I'm glad that you were able to pull that actionable nugget out of like, okay, just start here. So for anybody listening who is struggling with email marketing, like if you don't have a welcome sequence, 3 to 5 emails that just kind of think of it as the coffee date, right? The getting to know you, like, hey, how you doing? Welcome in here, introduce yourself. Here's what we're about. That is a great place to get started, and it will yield so many dividends because it just jump starts that relationship with people who subscribe. So that's cool. So what's happening with your sales? You're selling your
well,
program right now, yeah?
yeah, I am selling my program right now. I'm just onboarding. Incidentally, moving following the recommendations that you made, or in some of the particularly the podcast episodes, you did one where you spoke about where you're losing money, and I think you had a
Oh
you'll
yeah, the
find
50.
50K
Yeah.
5 minutes or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Um, and
I'm gonna
something
write
that
it.
I'm not sure if that was the episode you said it in, but I'm pretty sure I've heard it in enough episodes for me to remember. You say you need to have a way to be phone, for people to talk to you and for them to pay you. And those
Yes.
three things are things I've implemented that have made it pretty easy for people to find me, to contact me, and to pay me. Um, and as a result
Nice.
of that, with me talking about my program, honestly, my program comes through just literally people searching for me, finding me, and booking a call with me, and then signing up to pay me. So, as it relates to me selling my program, that I'm doing through email mostly, and that's where I've gotten business, believe it or not, which I didn't think was gonna happen ever.
I love it. I love to hear it.
But also the steps that people take to get to me. So you have people who might not book a call, but they have access to. I have a free resource and I have a paid resource, and they literally take the step free, then they consume the paid, then they book the call, even after doing all of that, and then they jump in. So by the time they get to me, they've already made up their mind, which I think finally getting the hang of that is almost what you really want to happen. And
Mm-hmm.
the fact that I've set something up that allows that to happen, I was like, even if I don't have huge numbers as far as clients, that has worked and is working for me is one of the biggest wins since we had that call that we had, not the last one, the one that I initial one. So
Oh, yeah, yeah, nice. That's awesome. And I mean, what you're describing is what my mentor Chris Davis would refer to as the profit path, right?
mm,
You define or you create organically, especially in the beginning, right? This journey where it's like, what is step one? Well, they search for you and they find you on some medium, right? Instagram or YouTube or what have you. And then they can follow you, they can subscribe, they can get a freebie, they can get a small paid thing, they can book a call. Like, that's it right there. And so, because you've now defined that, now you can continue to optimize it, right? You can say, you can start to measure, well, how many people are taking the freebie and then not upgrading to the paid thing? Well, what can I put in place to nurture them to take that next step? You know, then you can look at all of your steps that way. So, I mean, kudos, because you've done something that a lot of people who are, making a lot more money, like, still don't know exactly, like, well, how do I get, it's still like this amorphous, they're not sure how they get there. So that's huge for you. And now you can focus on, how do you optimize that, right? How do you get it working better? And once you get it working really well, then it's like, how do you get more people, right? How do you get more traffic? So that's huge.
that's exactly
So
where
what
I'm at.
Yeah. So what are you focused on right now? What are you working on?
So my podcast, I'm focused on that because again, that is also another medium for me that has worked, even though it's not my podcast. So I've showed up on other
Yeah.
people's podcasts and have gained clients from that. Um, and it's something I've been putting off for a long time. So I'm now using that as something that I'm gonna one always, it's also the place where I can always refer people to. So just like you, somebody has a question and I have people hop in my DMs, this is some place to send them, but also from my email list, it's a great place to send people when I'm discussing or I'm sharing a particular thing. Because in the podcast is where I'm planning to use or where I'm using the podcast to sell my shit.
Perfect. Perfect. Full circle, right? Like, you found our podcast, binged it, implemented some stuff, and now you're like, wait, if this works for her. So that's exciting. Is your podcast out yet?
No, it's not out yet.
Not out?
It's in
Okay.
the no, it's in the works. I'm hoping to have that done and ready before the end of July.
Awesome. Okay. Well, be sure to let me know so I can help you pimp that bad boy, because I love to
Sure.
see it. I love to see it.
I'm pimping
Um,
pot of gold to every group I'm in.
Thank you.
I yeah, I just told like 10 people about pot of gold in the last 2 weeks. I'm like, don't complain, just go.
It feels like, yeah, it's like once you get on the inside, it's like you evangelize and people don't get it until they get it. They're out here and they're frustrated and they're wasting all this time. And we're just like, okay, well, I mean, so you were talking about, oh, I think it was this podcast episode. I literally just went over to my pot of gold and found the link. That was this is the episode, the Find 50K in 5 minutes.
Mm,
Like I literally, while you were talking, went over to my pot of gold and found that link.
yeah,
So, I mean, I don't know what to tell you people if you're watching and you don't have it yet, or you have it and you haven't implemented. I don't know what to tell you. Like, go do it and come on the inside and like, so I'll put that link back up there. So you're working on your own podcast. That's awesome. Do you have any questions for me? Like you've been such a great supporter and champion. And I will tell you what, like whether somebody ever ends up in one of my programs or buys any of my things, like when you have a product or a service or something that you're putting into the world and somebody takes some part of that and says, hey, I did what you said and it benefited me, like that in itself is like the greatest compliment, the greatest payment. It is to, have people like you who are like, oh yeah, let me go actually do this thing and reap the rewards. Right. So thank you for that. That's why I wanted to have you on here.
awesome.
Do you have
Thank
any
you.
questions for me while you have me?
Um, Honestly, no, I didn't come prepared with any questions at
That's okay.
all because right now I am literally just focused on getting that podcast out, and I'm also selling my stuff and talking about it. So for me, I know what my next step's gonna be. So my questions are gonna come for you then. So yeah,
Awesome.
now I don't have any.
All right, cool. Steph is here. Steph Gaudreau. She says pot of gold is legit. We are actually talking to Steph tomorrow. So
Yeah.
continuing our series, Steph just graduated from boot camp. We did a marketing intensive. We're gonna have a good chat tomorrow. So on the screen is the link to apply to work with us. If you are listening to this and you are thinking, hey, I think I could use some guidance, I think I could use some community, some accountability, you want to come and check out Content Bootcamp, you can come and apply to get access to our private podcast. Of course, we have a private podcast. It's called Stop Repeating Yourself, and it takes you through everything you
So
need to
good.
know about bootcamp. You can also get an invite to book a call with me or someone on our team to talk about it and make sure that it's actually right for you at this time in your business. So I really invite you to apply. We don't bite, even though I'm famous for dragging. I promise. I'm actually very nice.
She does not
Um,
bite, y'all.
and I would love to chat with you. Shanique, thank you so much for taking the time. I so appreciate it. And I'm
Thank you
just
for
so
having
happy
me
for all
on.
your success. And I will see you on these here internet streets.
All right. See
All
ya.
right. Thanks.